Hello and welcome to the 2026 CSC U Summit, our two-day online learning experience for emerging athletic communications professionals, young professionals in years 1 to 3, and undergraduate and graduate students, interns, and just anyone else who's curious about our field. Today's session is titled Juggling Game Day, Time Management for the Modern College Sports Communicator. In the next hour, we will focus on time management strategies and how to best prepare for the busy tasks that come with being a sports communicator. My name is Sedric Granger, and I'm an assistant sports information coordinator at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I also do a little bit of broadcasting as well, which is a Division I HBCU in Prentice Anne, Maryland. The 2026 CSCU Summit is presented by the CSCU Committee, who is responsible for educating students and all those interested in pursuing the career path in the sports communication industry. I'm excited to serve as today's moderator. Thank you to all those who submitted questions during registration. And if you're watching live, you can also submit some additional questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And right now, I'm not alone because I'm joined by a great panel of industry pros who are ready to share their career journeys and advice with all of you. So to start us off, I'd like each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Madeline.
Thanks, Cedric. I am Madeline Cummings. I am the Director of Athletic Communications at the University of the South, more commonly known as Swanee. We're a D3 school, and this is my third year in the role. I was a four-year student athlete at Swanee and kind of transitioned into this role after I graduated. I knew the AD, and so kind of had a unique experience starting my role. So came into that role after and didn't really know what sports information was, but kind of was given the opportunity to come in and what our old SID had left, and so kind of learned a lot of things on the job and kind of took it up, and also learned a lot through utilizing CSC and reaching out to other people in the industry. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Madeline. Nice to meet you. Now we'll pass it on to Matt.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Matt Hoffey. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications at Marquette University, Division I school in Milwaukee, Big East Conference. Been here since October. The previous 3 years, I was at a Division III institution, Elmhurst University, outside of Chicago. Graduated from Illinois in 2020, and then 2021 with my master's degree. Served as an athletic communications graduate assistant there, as well as a student assistant for 2 years prior to that. So kind of been in the industry since 2019, and kind of lucked into it when some of my fraternity brothers were looking for jobs, and they recommended me the athletic communications field. They basically told me there were stats and I could have good seats at the games. So I signed up, and kind of ever since then, I fell in love with the industry, working with the student athletes, and that's kind of what's guided me throughout my journey so far.
Perfect. Appreciate the overview, Matt. All right, now we'll go to Clayton.
Hey, Cedric, appreciate you having me. Clayton Messerly, Assistant Athletic Director, Director of Athletic Communications at Corbin University here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, Salem, Oregon. We're out of the Cascade Collegiate Conference at the NAIA level, and I have the fortunate opportunity to work within the marketing department at Oregon State University, where I graduated from in 2018. And from there, landed at Warner Pacific University, another NAIA school just north here in Portland, Oregon, and have been serving here as the Assistant AD and Director of Athletic Communications for the last 4 years. So fifth year here, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here, Clayton. Thank you so much. And then we'll round it out with Isaac.
Yeah. Thanks, Cedric. I'm Isaac Ray, Director of Athletic Communications at Eastern Kentucky University. This is going to be my third year here. We're a Division I school currently competing in the ASUN Conference, transitioning next season to the new United Athletic Conference. So exciting stuff here. Got my start in athletic communications at Campbell University, where I was a member of the track and field program, and got introduced to the field as the Director of Communications there. Spoke in one of my classes, and I thought it was kind of my two favorite things: reporting on sports and then still being able to be a part of a team. So I worked as a student worker there throughout my time. Then went and got my master's at Florida State, worked in their office, also spent some time working at Tallahassee Community College. From there, went and then was the assistant AD at Texas A&M Kingsville, a D2 school in South Texas. And then I've been here since November of 23. So I've kind of run the gauntlet of the levels. All I'm missing right now is NAI and D3. So it's a lot of different varying experiences for me, but excited to be here.
Thank you very much, Isaac. And thank you to our whole panel. We have a lot of great experience and a lot of people that are going to bring some great advice and some great points here today when it comes to juggling those priorities. Time management, something that we have to do starting in high school, up into college, and of course, it continues into our industry here with sports communications. So let's begin with the big picture. How do you plan for your seasons? How do you set your priorities? Protect your time in a role where it feels like every request is urgent and coaches are coming at you, students are coming at you with different requests. So the question is, how do you manage this? So let's start from the beginning. Let's say it's during the summertime and you're trying to plan ahead so that you are ready for what's going to be coming in the fall, in the winter, in the spring. How are you planning things well ahead so that you're ready for the future? And we could start with Madeline to answer this question.
Yeah, definitely. I think it starts even before the summer. So we're getting our fall schedules now, and I'm at a D3 and we have 26 sports. So there's a lot of sports that are always going on. I'm at a department of one and a half, as I like to say. I have someone who's part-time with me. And so I think it really starts, starting to look at schedules. And then in the summer, I'll have a big Excel sheet of all my home games, all the weekends where we have home games, and kind of planning out, okay, I can do stats at this game, or who do I need to find to do stats at this game? Then filling in other pieces like PA, if you have someone who usually does PA, if you have student workers doing the clock. I know for soccer games, we'll have ball runners for Division 3 level. That's a little bit different everywhere else, but kind of having a big Excel sheet really helps me keep track of things in the summer and planning that out. But then also during the year when everything's going on, it's okay, I planned for that and I need to find out who's doing that. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have this person who's going to do stats there and kind of go from there.
Matt, do you have anything to chime in on that topic as well?
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what Madeline was saying about preparing with that Excel sheet. I've got the same thing here at the Division 1 level. I kind of took it from my time at the D3 level when I was dealing with 21 different sports, and now thankfully I've only got 3 sports. But it's kind of the same outset with that. And I haven't gone through a full summer here yet at Marquette, but even just getting started here in October and planning for our lacrosse season that's going on right now, it's communicating with people well in advance so that you're kind of not scrambling when you're in season. When you're in season, there's a million different things that come up with content, with stats, things like that, and then also juggling your other sports that you have. So the more work that you can do in advance and communicating with people who might need to help you with a game, whether that's we need to fill somebody in for the clock on this game or find another stats inputter, the more that you can do that well in advance, the more that you will feel prepared that week when it comes Monday and you realize that you have a game on Wednesday and a game on Saturday, that you can look at that and say, okay, I'm set here, here, and here, and then I can start working on kind of that to-do list for that week.
As sports communicators, we try to do our best to get ready for everything as early as possible and try to get ahead. But I think all of us know that there's going to be times where things are going to come up out of nowhere, where things are going to feel urgent, and you have to decide how are we going to prioritize things. So Isaac, do you have any good points of advice for people if things just start to get a little bit urgent and a lot of things come up? How do you prioritize what you want to do first?
Yeah, I think a huge part, and I think anybody who's worked a game day in college athletics knows that it almost never goes perfectly. So, and there's a lot of unknown things that could happen that you don't even know about. I think the biggest part is planning for what you do know. So, you're going to need game scripts. You're going to need, paper for the printer, toner, all of these little things. As much as you can do in advance to plan for the things that you do know, that way, when the unknown things come up, you're not scrambling to get those other things done. So as much pre-planning you can do, a huge thing that's been helpful for me in my career is having checklists. I still have it printed out on my desk that On game days, I have all of these things together because there's nothing worse. And I try to get everything set up the day before if possible. It's not always easy depending when you have other events and you get running around. But as much as you can do in advance and go through that checklist, okay, all right, I have the staffers, I have the materials ready, I got my game notes ready, I have all the broadcast equipment set up. I tested the Wi-Fi in the press box this morning, so I know we're good to go for that, for the stats and all that other good stuff. As much as you can do on the front end, because there will be something that goes wrong. But if you have all those other things, those nitty-gritty details squared away, you have time to put out the fires and deal with those things that you don't know. And you also troubleshoot. I try to do as much as I can to try to simulate what might be going on a game day and figure out in advance what's not going to work, communicate with parties that may be necessary to help me fix those issues, that way to try to limit the unknown on a game day.
It's a great point because you just never know what's going to come up. So being able to be prepared, I think, as early as possible and troubleshoot things, I think, early on is a really great way to do that. But following up, not only are there internal factors of things that are on our priority list that we got to take care of, but also there are people that might have some other priorities and some other interests that also may work within our job. We also work with a ton of different coaches for a variety of different sports, and those coaches' jobs is to really advocate for their sport in many ways. And us as SIDs, sometimes we have to balance that out, and it can get a little bit difficult. So for you, Clayton, in your experience working with a variety of different coaches of different sports, how are you able to communicate which sport comes first in different situations?
I mean, it's really important to have a good relationship with those coaches, first of all. Now, we always have new coaches coming in, whether it be assistants or head coaches, doesn't matter. Having good relationships with them and then making sure they understand you're all on the same team here. You're all promoting, within your university, not just their sport, but the university as a whole. And they need to understand that we're all in this together. I know it's kind of cliche to say, but literally we're all supporting one another, especially at the lower level university like NAIA, junior college, D3. It really doesn't matter. We're all supporting one another. And so it's difficult if you have somebody coming in who wants to just advocate for their only sport or just advocate for a single student athlete or a couple of them. They just need to understand we're all trying to fight the same battle. We're all supporting one another, and being able to communicate that effectively is a huge part of it.
Yeah, there's a big sense of balance that comes with working in sports where you have to balance each of the different sports that are going on. And it's almost like a puzzle where everybody needs to make sure that they understand that there are other sports that are in season. There are other sports that also need priority at the same time as we're doing our best to try to reach out to them and make sure that everybody's getting their fair shake. Speaking of balance, one big thing is work-life balance and stress management, because I know a lot of our students that are watching this, being a student not that long ago, I've only been in the industry for a couple of years. We're all thinking about how does this work-life balance work? We see SIDs that don't get any sleep is usually what's there, or don't get to eat. And we want to try to break that sort of philosophy a little bit, even though there are long and stressful days. So how do you all keep this work-life balance going, especially when there's all these different factors that are going on? We'll start with you, Madeline.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is definitely one of the hardest parts is finding time for yourself, and you really have to be intentional about building that time out, whether it be finding things that really refill your cup, whether it's like finding time to work out and taking time maybe in the morning, like, hey, I worked a game last night. I don't need to be in the office at 9 a.m. the next morning. Like, I'm going to take my time. Either I'm going to sleep in or I'm going to go and work out before I'm able to come in, or whether that's on the flip side, leaving early. I think the first year in it, that was something that I struggled with. It's always like, okay, well, I need to be in the office and I need to do this and I need to get all this stuff done. There's always going to be stuff to do. There's always going to be other things that need to get done. And so I think it's really important to make sure you prioritize yourself, making sure you're going and eating lunch. When you come back, the work's always going to be there. Make sure you're going and getting food before games. You just really have to be intentional about it. And it is hard, but as long as you're intentional about it, I think it's absolutely possible.
And then continuing on, Matt, I know you work at a Division I program with Marquette and plays really big time college basketball. How does the program itself promote a work-life balance within the employees of the university?
Yeah, it's really important to have those honest conversations with your administrators and your direct report. And luckily, I've got a great director here that understands that that balance. And kind of to the point what Madeline said, if you're working a game, like, we've had a few games this year where 8:30 p.m. tip off, I'm usually not leaving the arena till about 11:30 that night. So being able to communicate with your director and say, hey, late night, do you mind if I either work from home the next day or come in to the office a little late? It's really about communication. I mean, that's in all of our job titles, and it's really it's that honest communication and having that understanding that you might need some of that time to be able to balance things out, and just yeah, being honest with your directors.
We have a couple of follow-up questions from the audience. Of course, if you have any questions, just make sure to drop them in the Q&A, and we'll try to get as many as we can. Going back to that coach's point that Clayton kind of mentioned as well, have there been any effective communication techniques that you have found to be effective when talking about how to get through to coaches that you are working to promote the entire school when they feel they are not getting proper coverage? And Clayton, you can go hit on this, and then I'll ask Isaac about this as well.
Yeah, I mean, Matt already adhered to it. Like, this is all about communication. That's all we're about. You need to sit down and have a conversation with them first and foremost, whether it be one-on-one or bringing your director in, director of athletics in to help maintain that neutrality and understand that we're all, working for the same university. We're all supporting each other's staff and students. Just being able to communicate effectively, and then from there, if things still aren't working, like I said, get your director involved. Because at the end of the day, your coworkers, we're all working together on this, but there has to be a level of hierarchy as well when need be. But just effectively communicating, I really don't think there's any other better way to do it than just being bluntly honest and forefront with them, and just have the tough conversations that need to be had, essentially.
Perfect. And then Isaac, you can chime in as well on this.
Yeah, no, I think Clayton, hit the nail on the head there. When you are going to have difficult coaches, and it's not really an if, it's a when, because their priority is their sport, and that's what their priority should be. And you have to understand that. I think as much as you can do before you run into points of conflict in building relationships, being present and working with them so they know that you care about them and their sport. When these issues do come up, it's going to come from a place of, okay, they know and trust that I do care about their sport. And if there is something that maybe might just rub them the wrong way, we're not doing it intentionally. I can't help that there's multiple events going on and we might be spread a little bit thin. So you're not going to get all the coverage that you may want or different things like that. And coming from a place of understanding, when you have those relationships, those things can go through a lot smoother. And then what Clayton said in talking with your administration, I always try to look at the schedules in advance and figure out where some sticking points might be. Also getting to know your coaches' personalities. There are going to be some that are more difficult than others. And going to your administration ahead of time saying, hey, this is probably going to be an issue. Can we talk about how we can figure this out? I'm going to let you know what my plan of action is going to be. Make sure you're good with it, because there's a chance that it could come across your desk. And I don't think there's an AD in the world that likes being surprised with problems. So the more you can do in advance in letting them know where issues might come up, your plan of action for them, it shows that you're responsible and that you know what you're doing in terms of getting ahead of issues. But then it also allows them, if a coach does go to them and say, hey, so-and-so isn't doing this for my team, the AD can say, well, I've talked with them. This is their plan. I support them on this, and work through it with them, rather than there just be a butting of heads on these things.
Yeah, all kind of echo what Isaac was saying with that. And I mean, even in my first month here at Marquette, I cover our volleyball team, and we were on the road in Louisville for the D1 volleyball championships. That was also the first weekend of our track and field indoor season. So it was important for me at the beginning of that week to communicate with our track coach, telling him, hey, we might have a game on Saturday if we win on Friday. If that's the case, then the release for the track meet might not get up right away. But I made sure that he knew that I was still, paying attention to his program, and that it was still on my mind, and I was able to get it up, that next day early in the morning. But it's really important to have that plan and to effectively communicate that. and then follow up on that as well. It's not going to look great to a coach if you say that you have a plan and then it kind of goes haywire, or if it does go haywire for whatever reason. Just being honest about that communication, and honesty is the best policy for that, and just being open with that.
Yeah, I think being transparent is something you can't go wrong with in that situation. We have one final question on the topic. This comes from Will Loughlin of Kansas City Athletics. In moments of high stress on game day where something unexpected may be going wrong, whether it's the printer for stats malfunctions, been there. Internet stops working, I've been there as well. How do you properly keep your composure and not appear flustered? Madeline, I know you've had games for the last 8 days straight leading up to this, so I'm sure you might be able to bring something to the table here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of what we were talking about before is making sure you're controlling your controllables, right? You have everything set up that you can. Um, and then it's also like it's not knowing that it's not your fault that something went wrong, right? Like it's going to happen. And I think just taking that in, and it's hard to do, but I think just coming from okay, printer's not working. This is what we're going to do to deal with it. Let the coaches know if that's something that you need to know. If you need to let them know, I've had that happen before. Hey, our printer's not working. We're working on it, but for right now, we're not going to have stats to give you, right? Most coaches, if they know you're working to try to fix it, they're understandable on that. So I think just, it's not a reflection on anything that you're doing. It's technology, right? You can't control that. So I think just knowing going in that something might go wrong and being okay with that is really your best policy there. And then finding things that you can do to make sure to get your printer working, right? Try to troubleshoot before. If there's another printer you can get quickly, have someone run and grab that, get that up. Just finding ways to troubleshoot. And then Wi-Fi, if you know you're at a place, our baseball doesn't have the best Wi-Fi usually, so I'll have a hotspot with me just in case as a backup.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, Madeline, I can speak from experience this past football season. We had just put a new toner in our printer for our football game and thought we were locked and loaded, and we got through one game, no problem. Come back next week. I didn't account for the heat and it dried out the toner, and I didn't have an extra one ready. And something that I think we touched on a little bit earlier, knowing who else can help you on game days. I knew our ticket people had a few spare hands, so I called down to them because our press box is about 12 stories up and there's no elevator, so it's not like I can quickly get down somewhere and go do something else. So, and our offices are across campus. So I called our ticket manager. I said, hey, I need somebody to go over to my office and grab the toner and bring it over. So knowing who your resources are, because we all have so many different things going on in game day. And that's where building those relationships across your department, interdepartmentally within athletics is so key, because you're going to need those marketing and events people. You're going to need the ticket people. You're going to need help with your broadcasters. So building that's really key. And another thing that I always try to keep in mind is, I try to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. I try to be the one that we're the ones who are setting the temperature in the box, both hopefully naturally in terms of getting it comfortable for us, but in a more literal sense of just if you're calm, that goes a long way for everybody else. But if your anxiety starts to rise and stuff like that, that's how it's going to portray on everybody else. They're going to start freaking out. And it's hard to not, you can freak out on the inside, but externally trying to remember that, hey, I'm here for a reason. I know what I'm doing here, and there's no problem that can't be solved and that you can get it through. And then, Will, I will also tell you, if everything goes wrong, just blame Jared, who I know is your boss and a good friend of mine. That's always a good fallback option for you there with the ruse.
Thank you. That's some really good impact and some really good points there. I really love that thermostat, not a thermometer. That is a really, really great takeaway. So make sure to write that down if you're writing your notebook, like I am too, throughout this whole thing. But going on to our next topic, guys, I actually think it's a really good segue from transitioning about the planning to now jumping into the game day, where, we just got through crossover season, especially if you have a lot of winter sports into a lot of different spring sports. It can be a grind. It definitely can be. So let's kind of jump into how you manage these multiple sports overlap weeks, where let's say you got baseball, you got softball, you have a couple basketball games. Some schools got men's volleyball, some schools got track and field. There's just a lot of different things that are going on all at once. So how are you able to have that when there's multiple game days that are stacked on top of each other? We'll start with you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of go back to my time at Elmhurst. There were many times, at this time last year where we would not only have baseball and softball at the same time, which both facilities are off campus, but we also had lacrosse going on. And what I really did there, and this even started before the season and at the beginning of the year, was enabling my student workers. And then, having student interns and student workers, but then also giving them, tasks to do on game days so that I knew that, when we were going into a busy Wednesday, I know that, this student worker knows how to do the game clock for lacrosse. I know that this student worker has inputted a baseball game on Presto before. I know that this student knows how to set up the stream. So it's really enabling your student workers, and for all the students that are in this too, going to your supervisors and asking to do more. I know when I was a student at Illinois, I was young and I was kind of just wanting to learn absolutely everything that I could. So probably to a fault, I annoyed my directors a little bit much because I would get assigned a task and then I'd finish that and then immediately want to go to the next thing. So I would encourage all the students here, always ask to learn new things, and even asking for things that you might not think that you should get, like learning how to stat a game, whether for whatever sport. But just asking to get experience in that, and then also for the professionals here to enable your student workers to kind of have more higher duty tasks rather than just updating bios on the website or editing press releases. Giving them those tools so that one day if you are in a pickle with somebody might not know how to, or your game clock operator doesn't show up to a game, but the student that you have working that game knows how to do that, they can then step up and effectively fill that position.
And continuing on, there actually was another question from the audience here. This is from Jake Howard, and I'll ask this to you, Clayton. How do you deal with working back-to-back same-day games in potentially different sports? So having to try to switch gears real quickly from one sport to the other in the same day.
Matt kind of discussed it already with student workers and just utilizing your student staff as best as possible. But here at Corbin, I'm also really good about being able to work within the teams as well. So here we've implemented at Corbin, if you're out of season, you're 100% ready to jump in and help if need be, whether that be a coach, whether that be an assistant coach or something. So we have plenty of assistant coaches and head coaches, not necessarily maybe from a communication standpoint, but just from any management standpoint, your person who can go get your toner versus the person who can also jump in and help with staff if need be. So yeah, we've done a great job just with part-time staff, full-time staff. But students are 100% where you can gain the most out of your transitioning on game days. So, for example, if you're in the fall and you got soccer doubleheader at 12 and 2:30, and then you got to go up for a volleyball game after, whether that's working with your athletic director to make sure that we have times properly spaced between games so you can make it up and down if need be. But then also if you do have that crossover where there's overlap and you're not going to be able to be as much as we want to, we're not going to be at two places at the same time, being able to get those people ahead of time in those places. So training a student on stats, training a coach on how to do game day scoreboard or something like that. Like those are all things that we talked about earlier. It's just effective time management and preparing ahead of time for that. And to know that it's okay to not have to be somebody that plans out months in advance. If you're somebody that works better on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis, that's okay. There are definitely effective ways to be able to do that. You just have to do it. You have to plan ahead.
And I think it's important to advocate for ourselves too. I wanted to be in the meetings with our AD, our assistant AD, talking about schedules months and months in advance for the next year, because there are times where obviously the coaches don't always talk to each other when they're scheduling. So there's going to be times where the men's basketball coach schedules a non-conference game on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And then the women's basketball coach also schedules one that day for 6 o'clock. So obviously those aren't going to work. But then For us, advocating for ourselves to be in those positions, whether if you're a one person office, two person office, being in those positions to be able to see those conflicts and effectively communicate, what's going to work for your department, so that not only yourselves aren't being burned out, but also you're not being stretched thin with student workers and things like that. So kind of just being able to advocate for ourselves in those situations. And I encourage everybody to ask your athletic directors to be involved in those planning meetings, because it will save you a big headache months in advance.
Yeah, and I saw that Jake added in the Q&A. He's like, well, having student workers would be great. I don't have them. To that point, Jake, from an individual perspective, if you're just talking about the grind of how do you handle it, it's one of those things that it's almost like you're actually doing your own sport. You get conditioned to it for better or worse, and you get into a bit of a flow. And something we've said and time again, and I'll keep saying it, the more you can to plan in advance for all of those different games back to back in those different locations, so you don't feel like you're scrambling as much. But just like Matt said, I would, and like I said earlier, talk with your administrators, talk with your coaches in advance and be like, hey, we're coming off of X, Y, and Z games before we are going to get to yours. We have these are our problems that are going to be going on. These are what we're going to try to work through them, but it's not going to be perfect. And I think sometimes on the back end of athletics, we think everything needs to be perfect, but in our hearts, we know it's not going to be. But the key is, and I always have to remind myself of this, 90% of the people who are out there, they don't see the mess that's going on behind the scenes. It looks great to them. And as long as that's what's going on, that's what matters. And just when you're working those games back to back to back, it's very easy to get exhausted, fatigued. That's why when you do have the opportunity, it's not about when you have time, it's about making time for yourself and advocating for yourself with your administrators and be like, hey, I just got done working 5 straight days of day in, day out games. I'm taking a day and we'll live. Like Madeline said earlier, the work will always be there. And it's okay because we're all human. We need time for ourselves to recharge and get back into the flow and be ready for the next stretch of 5 games back to back to back.
Speaking of being human, sometimes we make mistakes, especially when we are younger. So what are some young sports communicators' mistakes that happen in high volume weeks that maybe you potentially made or something that you've seen in some of your younger staff? And how can this group avoid some of those pitfalls? And we'll jump in. We'll start with Isaac and then we can go to Clayton after.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the easiest things, like it's easy to forget things. When you have a lot of things going on, it's the small things that will slip through the cracks. It will be, I posted the game day graphic on Facebook and X, but I forgot to post it on Instagram, or I was typing up a bunch of different things and I posted it to the wrong account because my school has the little icons and the avatars, they all look just about the same and I posted to the wrong account. It's just a lot of times get your checklist in order, write down every little thing, even if it sounds like the most ridiculous thing. Like I would never forget the stat computer. I guarantee you we've forgotten the stat computer before. Make sure you have that checklist and you're going through it with a fine-tooth comb, double checking when you can the work that you're doing and you're putting out, because it is so easy with how many posts we're putting out in today's day and age to put the wrong link or, oh, I put the wrong time in there, different things like that. Double check, just slow things down for a second, read through it one more time, because that double check, that ounce of prevention will save you a pound of headaches and frustrated texts and calls from coaches and administrators being like, you put the wrong time or whatever it might be, or hey, you spelled the kid's name wrong, or hey, that's not my Instagram tag. Just slowing things down internally just for 2 seconds to double check everything, that is one of the biggest things, because that's where even today I find myself dropping the ball and things falling through the cracks for me.
We must have all been trained by the same person. We're all using Excel sheets. We're all using checklists. It's kind of crazy how that just transcends across levels, But like Isaac said, and how Madeline was talking about at the beginning with an Excel document, I'm looking at mine right now. It's planning ahead of time with getting your ducks in a row, but then procrastination can really be a problem at the beginning of the year, especially with procrastination. When everything in the summertime period, you took your time off, You thought you were ahead of time in terms of like planning ahead and getting your templates ready, getting your schedule set and whatnot. You're going to realize that you forgot something. And first of all, it's okay. We're not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. But being able to recognize that, and then next year, the next summer, that's written down, it's in your checklist. It's not going to be a problem from here on out. So yeah, planning effectively using checklists, Excel documents, whatever it is, we all tick differently. Whatever it is that works best for you, use that. And then don't procrastinate. I mean, it's a really simple thing to say, but yeah.
Yeah, and Clayton, one thing, and you hear coaches talk about this all the time, don't compound your mistake. If you make a mistake, that's fine. Like we've all said, we are very human. Don't let that one mistake get in your head to where you're freaking out or letting that, weigh on you. The next play, you just keep it moving. You fix it and you keep moving forward, going forward, and you don't repeat it again. I think that's something with working with GAs and student workers. And I remember myself, if I made a mistake, I felt like I had let everybody down. No, you keep it moving, you learn from it, and you just keep moving forward, getting better in what you're doing.
Like, it's some really good advice, especially being a younger person in this industry. You're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn. Sometimes those moments where you make those mistakes are the biggest and easiest way to learn. Sometimes when people are talking to you and telling you what to do it, sometimes that message doesn't resonate as much as actually making that mistake. And even though it'll hurt in the moment, over time, it is something you can go back to and you can be like, okay, I remember last time I made a mistake doing this way. Now I know for next time, I'm not going to do that. I'll make sure I'm ready for the stats. So I don't have to stay up till 2 a.m. to restat the game. Those types of dynamics that are at play. What we've learned as well, too, it feels like that all these game days are far from a one-person show. Everyone seems to have either some students or some people that try to help out. And even if you don't have any students, like the case of one of our question askers, there are still some other people that do support, whether it's some student athletes or other coaches that are trying to help things keep going. So now let's jump into those students, those tools, how we build those teams, how do we have those extra assets that uplift us during the game day experience. But I think the hardest part is first asking, what do we need to do when we want help and when we need help, and how do we delegate our tasks? So we'll start with you, Madeline. I know you're in a group, you said, of 1.5 people in your office, essentially. So how do you kind of delegate those tasks?
Yeah, I think knowing if you have student workers, I don't have a ton, and there weren't any when I came in my role either. So it's building that out. I think it's also, as Clayton was saying earlier, leaning on your colleagues. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So finding other people to come and stat may not necessarily be possible, but I think it's also, we've used kind of a shameless plug, I guess, for a company called Scores Table. We've used them to hire out for stats. And they're a huge help. And I think just having those conversations with your administrators and saying, hey, listen, like I don't have students that are going to be able to stat this game and I can't be in 3 places at once. So we're going to hire out and we're going to use this system and this is what it looks like. But I think also just giving your students opportunities to learn. And if you can do that, and I've had chances where like I had student workers come and stat the game alongside me using the Presto, the like try Presto stats, and having them come in and do game days with you when you can be there and have them train that way. That really helps. And then also you have to give them a chance to do it. You have to give them a chance to maybe fail, but then they also might surprise you. So I think it's just knowing yourself and knowing what you can work with and knowing your students. And that's how you're going to be able to utilize them the best.
We actually have a question on this topic as well, too, about training those student workers. So, Madeline, you kind of hinted at it by giving them opportunities to just do it, especially when, they're here on campus and they have those opportunities to help. Isaac, I remember you having a quote that really stood out to me where you said, "I will never say no to more help when it comes to students jumping out on campus." So do you have any just responses to that question from the anonymous attendee there about how do you go about training students?
Yeah, and I think they make a really good point in their question when they said, it feels like, particularly in the fall, when they get to campus, that's right when fall sports are happening. So how do I train them? I do that a multitude of ways. One of the best things I started doing was I started working with our admissions office, and when they would have new student orientation and they have all these organizations there, I would try to get to those events to meet students that are possibly interested. A lot of times it's happening in the June, Julys. So I have a little bit more time to get out there, get their contact information, tell them a little bit about what we do here in athletic communications. And if they really do seem interested, I'll send them training materials. The beautiful thing now with NCAA live stats for particularly with me with football is that I can send them the link and they can download the program as long as they have a PC. Not everybody does, but you work through it and say, hey, you do these training games, for all of these different sports, because I guarantee you, if you show me that you know how to do this, I will use you for it. And that's a great skill to have. It's a necessary skill to have if you want to move through this. Also bring them into shadow on game days. I know with how hectic game days feel, it feels almost cumbersome to have someone else behind you and feel like you have to, bring them around. But getting those hands-on experience for me when I was a student and being let into the press box to learn and hear the conversations, hear people calling stats and figuring out how these workflows go on game day, that was a super impactful for me to learn how this whole thing operates. And then from there, working with them to develop those skills, trying to making it fun and engaging. I trained people on baseball stats using Backyard Baseball 2005. That's how I trained one of my student workers when I was at Kingsville how to do stats. I pulled up Backyard Baseball, I put the teams into the system, and we let it rip. It was a little funny. My AD walks in, he's like, "Are you guys playing video games?" I said, "Yes, and we're also training, so it's all good. I promise. This has value." But no, and it's super hard, particularly in the fall. But the more you just bring them into the fold, starting with small tasks, walking them through when you can, either pre or post event, about what you're doing and how they can learn it, that's going to be the best way to train those student workers, particularly when, it does feel like there's a short window to do it in the fall.
Yeah, really great lesson with going back into like the teachers, going back into the professors, or any of those days in which there's a ton of students that are there for orientation. Those are great opportunities to tap into different resources. For example, here at Maryland Eastern Shore, we connected with our digital media studies dean, and she invited us to have like a formal session with any students that might be interested in sports. And we got to give them like an hour presentation, get people signed up who want to get signed up, and give opportunities for people to jump in as well too. Clayton, I think you were about to mention something on the topic, so go ahead and jump on in. I'm sure you got.
All right. I was just going to follow up off of what Isaac was talking about, but not only shadowing on game days, set up a practice, whether it be at a practice for one of your sports. So, for example, every year, this is just a one-off that I get to do this every year just because that's how my coach operates. Is for indoor volleyball in the very beginning of the fall, she always hosts a doubleheader fall scrimmage. Always hosts one with a couple of JUCOs. That is the perfect opportunity right before school is starting to get in there and start training kids on how to do whatever it is you may need them to do. But aside from even just scrimmages, you'd be surprised if you communicate with your coaches and say, hey, here are the issues I'm running into, especially jumping straight into the fall or even in crossover seasons when we are stretched a million different ways. If you just communicate with your coaches and say, hey, I need to come to a practice with a couple of students and show them how to run shot clock in basketball, or I need to show them how to effectively tell the difference between an over and a continuation, or whatever it may be in volleyball. Regardless of what it is, just communicate with your coaches and say, hey, I need this opportunity. You're at a practice. We're not going to bother you. Is this okay?
Yeah, I think that's great. Just working into our resources, it adds more to that teamwork factor that is there in an athletic department where if you go up, you communicate, you ask. I mean, the worst they can say is no or give a reason why it doesn't happen. But most of the time, they will understand and will say yes. So I think that is a really good point there as well to add, Clayton. Now for you, Matt, imagine, I'm sure a lot of students, they might feel a little bit nervous about reaching out to their athletic department or maybe fear they don't have enough experience to maybe bring something to the table. I think about back to my sophomore year where I was, my first year of college was during COVID. So there really wasn't as many opportunities that were there. And then you were trying to jump in and trying to communicate and you feel like, hey, I don't really have that much prior experience prior to that, aside from broadcasting games on Snapchat. So I was trying to leverage some certain experience like that. But how about a student? Let's say I'm a student at Marquette. I'm a freshman or sophomore, don't have much experience, and I'm reaching out to you. How did they go about getting involved with sports?
And I honestly don't really think that you need to have too much prior experience to be in this field, in this communications field. Even as a student, especially if you're a freshman coming in, there's a very good chance that you're not going to have much experience. So it's important to kind of identify the people that you can go to, and see if there's any openings. Like Isaac said, we will not say no to more help. And I love when I see emails from a random student that's asking if they could help, because I know that that person is somebody that is actively interested in this field, in the athletic communications field. And I think it's important for us professionals too to kind of find those students that are willing to kind of go the extra mile and do the extra step. There's always going to be students that, they just need an on-campus job, and they think sports are cool, and they just want to be working in the press box. But then there's those other students that might ask, some more questions about how do you exactly do the stats? How do you do this? How do you do that? So it's finding those students, and students in here being that student, and asking for more, and asking more questions, because as professionals, we will give you more opportunities and more responsibilities if you are actively, trying to find those.
I'll also touch on that. As I kind of mentioned in my intro, I had like kind of a weird way segue into this role and into being in athletic communications. I graduated and there weren't very many opportunities at my school in the past to work with it at all. And I played tennis, and so at D3, you don't necessarily see SIDs at tennis matches all the time because there are a million other things going on. So when I started, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, and I was just kind of thrown into it, and I learned as I went. And so I think it's so important to ask questions, reach out to people, be willing to learn, be willing to make mistakes too, because you're going to make mistakes. And so I think, yeah, you don't have to have any experience going in. And also as a student, no one's really expecting you to. As long as you're there and willing to learn and willing to put your time and effort into it, everyone's going to say, yeah, come on, we'll use your help. We can always use more help, as everyone said. So I think just willingness to learn and to be there and to really immerse yourself in the experience is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's a core part of college in general is that you're going there to learn, you're going there to build your experiences and build your connections. So don't be afraid to reach out. You never know how big of an opportunity it might be, and it might be the industry for you where you started off just learning about it in college and then you zoom out 5 years later, you're in the industry and this is a good career path for you and you're feeling happy working in sports. As our last topic, before we go into our closing questions and closing thoughts, nowadays we got the rise of AI and these different tools that can help us out, whether it's ChatGPT or other AI indicators, whether that's for social media graphics, whether it's helping out with cutouts and things like that, photography, social media, content in general, emailing, even that's been utilized where AI can help out with those tools. So I'll kind of open this up to the entire panel. Do any of you have some experience working with any of these AI or Chat GPT tools and can apply some of that knowledge and pass that on to some of our students who are now growing up where that's the standard in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a one thing that I use as our track contact is if anybody's ever seen an entries PDF for a track and field meet, it feels like an endless stack of pages, and you're like, how am I going to sift through all of this and make sure that the people that I need to cover are being covered properly and make sure I don't miss any. Sometimes coaches will send you their entries, but they're not always correct and different things like that. What I'll do, I'll take the PDF and I put it into Grok or ChatGPT and I say, hey, pull out all of the entries listed under my school. And it actually does a pretty good job of pulling it out. It can even create a table for me where then on my recap, I don't have to go searching for their results, or if I do, I know where to go and find them. And I can create a table with all of their results in one place. And I don't feel like I have to type out a sentence for every single person that competed, but I'm still making sure I'm doing my job as a communicator and a de facto statistician and historian of the program, that we have every result recorded down and things like that. And that saved me a lot of time. Also, I've thrown it in the question of like, hey, what are some content ideas, particularly on Grok? Like, what are high performing trends that you're seeing? And it can give me analytical feedback on different types of trends that I might be missing, because even though I wasn't in school that long ago, it feels like it was forever. And I feel like I get older and older, like 10 times more every year I'm with these student athletes and they're talking about trends. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I can get analytical data and insight to how I'm going about and approaching it, working with our content team to kind of stay on top of those different ideas. And that's been something that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I'll kind of add on in my role now. I use it a lot to kind of find stat trends and things that are happening with my team, because it takes a lot of your mind to try to figure out 5 or 6 different paragraphs for your game notes. But taking your stats, your NCAA rankings, things like that, and asking. I specifically use Copilot because it's through our university. But I ask it, take a look at these stats and give me some trends, and it'll pop out. Our one of our freshman attackers is one of the leading goal scorers, assist givers in women's cross. So finding that and like finding those trends, but then kind of also what Isaac said with track and field, it helps me find PRs and new top 10 marks in school history, because there's a lot of numbers that are being thrown around, and I think you can kind of use it as a tool to kind of analyze that data a little bit quicker than we just scrolling through something. So I think it can really be a tool for you to use for your everyday job.
Yeah, I think that's a really good overview over there when it comes to AI, utilizing it as a way to assist you and to help you as opposed to it being something that replaces your job. I think that's pretty much the best way to view it in terms of how we are going to be adding into this industry of having AI kind of working with us. And you saw from Isaac and saw from Matt just a couple of examples in ways that it can assist us in juggling game day. Overall, in this session, it's been really good. There's been a lot of great takeaways. We've learned the importance of getting ahead, remaining calm and composed, and then just also not being alone as well, and what that you do. So I think those are all some really important takeaways for you all to have throughout this. So thank you so much for joining us for this first session. Thank you to our panelists as well, Madeline, Matt, Clayton, and Isaac, for joining us and sharing their advice. And for any students that are interested in a career in sports communication, just make sure to continue going to the YouTube channels, go to CSCU, go through all of the different things in our summit as well too, because there is so much knowledge to be passed along from all parts of the industry, ranging from D1, D2, D3, NAIA, all over JUCO. We have so many great people that are here to just help and give some advice for anybody that's interested in the industry. I also want to say thank you to everyone who joined and submitted questions as well. And following the conclusion of this call, please take a moment to complete our brief post-webinar survey to help us improve future programming to keep making it better for viewers like you. So thanks again for being with us today. I hope that you all join us for our next session, which is starting at 4:15. So you get a little chance to grab a snack, maybe grab a water, and get ready for the 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific session for the College Communications Roundtable, where moments that make the job worth it will be highlighted. So that's a great session to be tuned into. But as for us, that's all we got. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session of CSCU.